Thank you all very much for being here this morning. We have a special guest. The governor is with us, and he'll be introduced in a moment. We want to thank you for coming. I'm Lyle Jepson, Executive Director of the Chamber and Economic Development, and we will, unfortunately, you'll have to listen to me for a moment, so my apologies in advance. And then we will hear from the governor after a successful session, and there will be an opportunity for questions and answers. On your table, there are a couple cards, index cards, with hopefully a pen there as well. If you have a specific question for the governor that you would like us to ask, please fill that out. Mose Casaro will be coming around the room to pick up any cards that you might have. So I would be remiss if I didn't point over to this big Omnia sign over here. We very much appreciate Omnia for sponsoring this event, both back when we did it in the winter and now. And most of you already know that Omnia, located in Florence, sometimes called Pittsford, not quite sure exactly where it is, but you have more than 120 employees. You produce finely ground calcium carbonate using a variety of worldwide products, all the way from vinyl siding to diapers. There's so many uses for the product that I didn't know about that it's pretty amazing, and it comes right out of Vermont here. You are very serious about your obligations to both the regulatory and environmental matters that are of concerns to Vermont and to your employees. And I'm looking over here because there's an Omnia table up here. I'm not turning my back on the governor. We very much appreciate the fact that you are a vital part of our economy. You have been here a very long time. You are helping communities in ways that are very silent, but you do all the time. So I'd like to have everyone help thank Omnia for their support that you provide not only to our region, but Vermont. Thank you very much. My staff will remind me that if I don't introduce them, that I didn't introduce them. So Mose Casaro is standing back here. Mose is the director of Startup Rutland Business Incubator and our director of Venture Capital. We also have Crispin White, who is over by the door over here that all of you saw when you came in, our membership and events manager. Right in front of me is Olivia Buxbaum, who is our communications and marketing manager. We also have Shasta Matino over by the door, who's raising her hand right now. She's our finance and compliance manager. She keeps me out of jail. We also have Carly Haven, who's raising her hand now. She is our concierge coordinator, and she helps run the Real Rutland Regional Marketing Initiative. And we also have Lori Pinkowski, who is our office manager, who's raising her hand over here. Let's give them a nice round of applause for their help. I'm very excited that we have a large delegation here of our legislative body. Rutland County is very, very lucky to have the people that are devoted to the work that's happening here. They're devoted to going to Montpelier and bringing things back to you, the citizens. I'd like to have the following folks either raise your hand or stand up. We have Representative Dave Bosch right here. We have, and we'll hold our applause till the end. Sorry, Dave, I didn't want to make you feel bad, okay? We also have Representative Tom Burdett right here. We also have Senator Brian Collamore. We also have Representative Jim Harrison. We also have Representative Zachary Harvey. We also have Representative Chris Howland. We also have Representative Chris Kieser. We also have Representative Alicia Millay right in front of me. We also have Representative Todd Nielsen.
Let's go, Brandon!
He's a Brandon supporter. We also have Representative Chris Pritchard right over here. We also have Representative Bill Canfield. We also have Representative Eric McGuire. Representative Mary Howard, I'm sorry, Mary, where's Mary? Right back there. We also have Senator Terry Williams, as well as from Bennington. Thank you for coming. Representative Sandy Pinsino. And we have Representative Patricia McCoy. Now, who did I forget? Oh, thank you. Okay. All right. Special thanks to PEG TV for being here today. If you, we don't tell people that We don't always tell people that they can watch it later on, because we wouldn't want it to be blacked out. So thank you for being here. We have Rich Elnicki, we have Chelsea Vogel, and we have the executive director from PEG TV, Tom Leopold. Where's Tom? Raise your hand. Right in the back. Give them a nice round of applause again, PEG TV. Outstanding. All right. So CEDRR would like to again thank our legislative delegation. You are all here. We'd also like to thank Governor Scott for the things that you're doing in Montpelier. Our region gets a lot from Montpelier. And you might say at times, what does government do for us anyway? Well, I told the governor I was going to take a moment to talk about some of the things that I'm aware of that government does for us. And it's our legislators and it's Governor Scott that are doing that. Examples of the support that we receive and projects that I know about, because CEDRR's involved in that in some way, include things like the Vermont Economic Progress Council granting TIF districts to both Killington and Rutland City. Game changers economically for our region. Game changers. We can get 2 TIFs per county. We have 2 TIFs per county. And I want to thank the Economic Progress Council, Vermont Economic Progress Council, for that. We also have newly the CHIP program. It's the Community Housing Infrastructure Program, which is a financing program that allows even small communities to benefit from incentives to develop housing, which we desperately need. I'd also like to thank the Northern Borders Regional Commission staff through the state. Recently, you may have heard that the Benson Trust received $500,000 towards their country store project. You may have heard that Rutland City received $3 million towards the downtown revitalization project of Whale Street and Center Street. You may have heard that the Paramount Theater received $1 million to renovate the Paramount Theater, and there's a lot going on there. You may have heard, probably not, that CEDRR received $150,000 through the RIDIP program, which is the Rural Industrial Development Program, and this is the most boring information you'll get today. We're bringing a water line across the road to the other side of the industrial park. I get excited about that. Other people go, who cares? I get excited about that, and I'm looking at John Custer over here, from Bodycoat, who is down in the industrial park, and he realizes that we will be able to now build other commercial property across the road at the industrial park, which we desperately need. We have old infrastructure. This is new infrastructure. We're excited about that. Come up and talk to me about that later. I'll talk to you about an hour about that. We also received $150,000 through the Tourism and Marketing Department for our regional marketing initiative. Fairhaven is actively pursuing, and I see Joe Gunter, the business manager here from Fairhaven, actively pursuing getting the Skyline Manufactured Homes facility open again, and they have received a VCDP grant to help with that. And I'd also like to thank the governor for advocacy for quality, equitable, and financially sustainable education for Vermonters and for Vermont students. Change needs to happen. It's going to be hard. People don't always like change, but we can't necessarily afford the direction we've been going in education right now, and there needs to be some changes. That's happening. I'd also like to thank our legislators and the governor for the passage of Senate Bill 51 that supports veterans with an exemption from Vermont income tax on military pensions. That was co-sponsored by our very own Senator Weeks, and for years aggressively pursued by Bill Canfield from Fairhaven and Senator Collamore. I want to thank them personally for that. And I just talked to a veteran who said we want to talk about that today. So thank you for coming back to Vermont from Florida? Georgia. Thank you for coming back. I would also like to thank the governor. When he came in, I said, thank you very much for coming to our Bring Back the Trades event on May 20th, and Zach was there as well. On May 20th, we had over 2,000 high school students and many of your businesses there, seeing and being introduced to high school age students that we want to keep in this area doing work in the trades. We want them to train here, stay here, work here, and build their families. We have great businesses here, but they need employees. And so we will, over the next few years, be doing the Bring Back the Trades program to introduce those students to real people the people that they will build relationships with and will hopefully want to work with well into the future and stay right here. And as I look around the room, I see a lot of the businesses that were there and a lot of the businesses that we hope will benefit from that event. And I want to thank the governor who was there, who helped give away $25,000 worth of scholarships. And those students, I think there were 10 of them, that will now be going on to trade schools. They also were introduced to great businesses. We hope they're going to come right back here. And the list goes on. What does government do for us? You just heard a part of that. There's a whole lot more going on. And to help explain that, Brian Collamore, Senator Collamore, is going to come up and he is going to introduce our guest speaker, Governor Phil Scott. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Brian Collamore.
Good morning. Good morning. So, I was kind of kidding around with Lyle earlier. The last time I wore this apparently was the day that the lieutenant governor showed up for a breakfast, and I had the honor of introducing him that day. And the giveaway was, the first line said, John grew up on a dairy farm in West Glover, and I knew that probably wasn't going to fit today's situation. So, Phil Scott is a lifelong Vermonter. He grew up in Barrie, graduated from Spalding High School and the University of Vermont. For more than 30 years, he was a co-owner of his family construction business and has to this day, and even as recently as this past Thursday, been known as a stock car driver of some renown. At Barrie's Thunder Road, he has the most career wins as the late model driver of car number 14. Yeah. In 2000, Phil decided to run for the state Senate and won the first time out, and then served for 10 years as a state senator representing Washington County. He then served 6 years as our lieutenant governor. He became the 82nd governor in January of 2017 and was reelected to his 5th term this past year. Listen carefully now, where he won the majority of votes in every city and town in the state for the second election in a row. Throughout his many years in public service, Phil has listened to and learned from Vermonters all across the state while making Vermont more affordable, growing the state's economy, and protecting our most vulnerable. So please join me, and I want everybody up on their feet in a warm welcome as we say hi from Rutland to the most popular governor in the United States of America, our governor, Philip P. Scott.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, good morning. You could have used part of that because even growing up in Barrie City, I grew up next to a dairy farm. So there was only 2 dairy farms in the city, and I believe there may be one still there, but a little fact for you. Well, it's great to be here again today. It's always great to be back in Rutland to talk a little about the legislative session that just wrapped up. With the help of many legislators in the room, you heard all the names here. We had some success, but we have much more work to do in the second half of the biennium because we're only at halftime. Before we get into that, I want to speak just a bit about how we got to where we are today. As many of you know, a year ago, the makeup of the legislature was very different. Democrats held the supermajority in both the House and the Senate, which meant they had the numbers to override anything I vetoed, which they did. It also meant they didn't have to consider the perspective of the minority. In my 25 years in politics, I've never served in the majority, including in my 5 terms in the Senate. But I have to say, as a senator, I was always given the opportunity to weigh in and be heard. However, at some point, things change. And I don't think this just happened in Vermont. It's happening across the country. Over time, we've become more polarized, more tribal, and unwilling to listen to one another. And when that happens, it's not good for the people we serve or our state. So in 2023 and 24, it was clear the supermajority was going to implement their agenda, regardless of what I thought and what I heard directly from Vermonters. Over those years, that meant a 20% increase in DMV fees, a 20% increase in property taxes, 14% in 2024 alone, and as high as 35% in some areas, and a $100 million payroll tax. Now, don't get me wrong, that's politics. They earned it, they got the most votes, they got elected, and they had the votes to pass all of it, and in most cases, the votes to override my vetoes. So it became clear we needed the help of voters to get back some semblance of balance and common sense. And in November, Vermonters responded and sent a more balanced legislature to Montpelier with a bigger minority in the House and Senate and a new lieutenant governor. So for the first time in 14 years, I'm no longer the only Republican office holder in the state, and that's a good thing. So right after the election, we started putting together our agenda for the 2025 legislative session, taken from the hundreds of phone calls, emails, letters, and conversations I've had with Vermonters over the last several years. We've known for quite some time that our biggest challenge here in the state continues to be our demographics and affordability. So our goal was to put together a package that would help to move both in the right direction, while saving, the immediate problems we're facing statewide for another day, but that was this last 2 years. So we had to solve those. Those issues were public safety, affordability, housing, and education. We worked with our secretaries and commissioners, my cabinet, to put together 4 bills that would carry our agenda throughout the building. And we were able to make meaningful progress in all 4 areas. From the start of the session, I have to say, the Speaker of the House and the Pro Tem of the Senate showed a willingness to work across the table with the minority and my team, which I appreciated. But on each issue, there's still more work to do. And we didn't get everything we wanted, but overall the past session was productive and moved us forward instead of backwards, on public safety in particular. It was clear Vermonters wanted us to do more, to hold those who commit crimes accountable for their actions. They saw a catch and release system that was putting offenders back on the street hours after arrest, only to reoffend again and again. Crime and open drug use was hurting our businesses. And most importantly, too many Vermonters were feeling less safe in their homes, in our downtowns, and other public spaces. And the data backs that up. According to the Vermont Intelligence Center, 2024 was the 3rd straight year with over 20 homicides. Between 2018 and 2023, aggravated assaults increased by 40%. Motor vehicle thefts, identity thefts, and retail thefts have each more than doubled. And from 2022 to 2023 alone, reports of shoplifting increased by 40%. So we offered solutions to end the revolving door, including repealing Raise the Age, which over time would have increased the age offenders could be charged as adults to 22, as well as other tools that would make it easier for judges to hold offenders without bail. And, among other things, invested increased funding to treatment for those struggling with addiction. And we made some progress. Our initiatives to seal rather than erase criminal records so they would remain available for criminal justice purposes passed both houses. Now this was a major, major, major change. That changed everything from my perspective. Raise the age was successfully delayed until 2027, giving us time to work on a more comprehensive approach to hold young adults more accountable for their crimes. We received funding to use part of a DOC facility for expanded drug treatment and long-term recovery services for those incarcerated. And we expanded funding for our pretrial supervision program. Now, again, there's more work to do, but this has been a good start toward a safer Vermont. When it comes to affordability, we introduced a $13.5 million tax relief package that included changes to the child tax credit and the earned income tax credit to provide some relief for families and workers who may not bring home a big paycheck, but put in an honest day's work and deserve a helping hand. We also asked the legislature to raise the income tax exemption on Social Security, to let seniors on a fixed income keep a little more of their money. And as was mentioned before, as I've done for many years, asked again to totally eliminate the income tax on military retirements. Now, I would have preferred to go much further than this, but I'm happy to say, once again, with the help of many, many in the room, we were able to get nearly all of it, although it did require us to compromise just a bit. The important thing is that those who most need relief are going to get some. We'll need to come back to affordability next session to address things like the Clean Heat Standard and the Global Warming Solutions Act, because if we don't repeal or amend those laws, Vermonters are going to face increased costs and will be sued by special interest groups using up our limited resources, fighting legal battles that we will ultimately probably lose. On housing, we passed much needed infrastructure report. Getting the project, as was mentioned, CHIPS is what I'm talking about, the project-based tax increment financing over the finish line, something many of us have been working on for many years. And I was pleased, again, as Lyle had mentioned, to see that the Rutland region was able to get TIF across the finish line in both Killington and Rutland. And this will make a huge difference for the entire region. So very excited about that. The changes we made will help level the playing field so rural communities with fewer resources have some of the same economic tools as larger towns. It will allow for $2 billion in infrastructure spending over the next 10 years, improving building sites and neighborhoods for new growth and development. But we still need to work on regulatory reform. It's just too hard to build homes in communities across the state, and because of that, we're lagging behind. Our housing data shows we need over 40,000 new units by 2030 just to catch up. That's over 8,000 a year between now and then. At our current pace, we'll be lucky to hit 25% of that goal. Increasing our housing stock by making it easier to build and develop in places where it makes sense is key to making Vermont more affordable. It will help to stabilize the rental and home market, which is far too expensive across the state, holding back talented workers from staying and moving here. If we can make smart, impactful regulatory changes, it will increase our grand list and help bring in more tax revenue. As I've said before many, many times, we need more taxpayers, not more taxes. And this will allow to keep and attract young families, revitalize communities, schools, and fill jobs. This has been a priority for me, my team, and many of the legislators here today for a very long time, and will continue to be into the future. But perhaps the highest profile issue of the session was the transformation of our education system. And while it was long and difficult and uncomfortable for some, we're able to come together on a bill that sets us on a path towards a system that better serves our kids and one that taxpayers can afford. Vermonters have faced property tax increases year after year, while our student population and test scores have continued to decline. It would be one thing if we had the highest test scores in the country, but that's not the case. And our current system is failing our kids. And that's hard for some folks to hear, but it's the truth. 10 years ago, when I first ran for governor, I said, if I gave you a check for $1.6 billion and asked you to educate 86,000 kids, I'd bet you'd build a system that looked completely different than what we have today. Well, today, that check would have to be $2.3 billion, and we have 80,000 kids. So let that sink in for a minute. In 8 years, we're spending $700 million more, and we're educating 6,000 fewer kids. So we brought a plan to the legislature that would change our funding formula and redesign our governance structure to create equity, increase quality, and build a substantial, sustainable, and affordable system Vermonters can afford. I was encouraged that both the House and Senate leadership agreed it was time to act and stuck with our team throughout the session to create a blueprint for education reform. And yes, it will look drastically different than we have today. Moving from over 100 school districts to somewhere between 5 and 12 will be a huge change. The foundation formula that was included funds the amount it costs to educate a student across the state in every district, which is very different than what we do now, but is used almost entirely by the rest of the country. Higher quality standards, increase access to CTE and after-school programs, higher teacher pay, larger class sizes and bigger schools will all be different than what we do now. Because what we're doing now isn't working. From Act 60 to Act 68 to Act 46, for over 30 years the state has tried to fix a broken system by tinkering around the edges and worrying more about what the adults want rather than what the kids need. The bill that passed sets us on a path to create one of the best education systems in the country. Focus on providing the highest quality education for students, putting them ahead of all the other drama that has muddied the conversation for years. But this is only the first step, and the work ahead will be just as, if not more important and more difficult than we've done this session. But meaningful change takes time. And I appreciate the work of our partners in the legislature who had the courage to recognize the problem and step up to be part of the solution. When I look back at last session, it's clear the balance we achieved last November helped us all get a seat at the table. The bottom line is, and the legislators here can attest to it, we passed some good bills this session and stopped some bad ones from happening. And our hope is that Vermonters will begin to see and feel the results of the work that we did. But I can't stress enough, we cannot make the mistake others have made to declare victory, move on, and assume our many crises have been solved because we still have so much more work to do. So again, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. Be happy to try to answer a few of your questions, but we'll have at it.
So So we do have a couple questions. Chelsea's going to turn me up here. Thank you. Let's stick with the school topic. Given that taxpayers in all school districts in Rutland County currently allocate less, sometimes far less, than the foundation amount per pupil in H454, won't this mean that Rutland County taxpayers will see a tax increase as a result of this bill?
Yeah, no, not necessarily, because we're going to be taking, again, there's going to be some consolidation. I know people don't like to hear that either, but throughout the state. There are many schools that need to consolidate, combine. And I will say, I'll use Washington County. And I've watched for years. I went to Spalding, but Spalding in Barry, we have Montpelier High School about 8 miles away. 3 miles from there is U32. 10 miles from there is Northfield. Another 8 miles away is Moortown or Harwood. And it goes on and on and on. We don't need that many high schools. In fact, the population is decreasing every single one. We have an elementary school, Rumney in Middlesex, and exactly 5 miles away is another elementary school in Worcester, Doty. And both are seeing declines in population, and neither one are sustainable. But they will not combine because somebody has to give. It has to go one place or the other. And when you have the local boards that are making those choices, they don't get made. So somebody's got to make the hard choices, and that's what's going to happen. There'll be weighted, and you should probably have our Secretary of Education down to talk to you in depth about this, because between her and some of my staff could explain it much better than I can. But this will not lead to higher spending. It should reduce spending. But we're going to have to, admittedly, once we start doing this, we have an aging infrastructure, our schools are aging, we're going to have to invest back in those schools as soon as we figure out where they're going to go. Because that's going to make a difference as well. And how we want to make sure CTE fits in with this as well, from my standpoint. I'm a product of CTE. So we need to, all these things have to come together. But the first thing we have to do is draw the lines. And again, draw the lines to reduce the number of districts down from 100 and I think it's 109 down to something that's more manageable. Larry Coopoli thought we should do one, and he's not far off.
This is a comment and not a question. I can't imagine who it came from, but PEG TV would like to thank you for your support.
Again, Larry Coopoli, he likes to take credit for a lot of things.
There is Larry. Okay. So changing the subject slightly, a question about the unhoused. And since COVID, it almost appears as if being unhoused has become a way of life. And under your leadership, how do you hope to address this part? Because we know there are many, many mental health implications. What do we do to encourage people to be more self-sustaining, to be more contributing potentially to society? It's a big issue for the Rutland region.
Yeah, no, it is. And, you know, per capita, I would say the homeless population had a dramatic effect on this region more than any other region. As much as I heard from Burlington, again, per capita, Rutland was far more impacted than others. We made some mistakes, admittedly, made some mistakes during COVID. And part of that was because we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. We didn't know what was coming, how it was going to impact us. But we had FEMA money, we had federal money that said you need, for those who are unhoused or people who need to be separated, we need to provide you with funding to provide for hotel rooms. And so the hotel motel program was born. Our problem was we didn't wean ourselves off from that soon enough. And the FEMA money kept coming, and we were so focused on in other areas, we didn't do enough at that point. And so I'll admit to that one. But what do we do now? And it's tough work. I mean, you think about pre-COVID, we were spending about $5 or $6 million total on our general assistance program. And today, the bill that I vetoed was going to be all told about 50 million. And that was, it's just too much money. We need to provide shelters for those who cannot find a place to be. We owe it to people to do that. But I think it should be more congregate shelter. It can't be isolated in a hotel room because we don't provide the help they need during that time. That's why congregate shelters make so much more sense. We opened up a couple when this came to a head probably a year and a half ago. And we were impacted, what are we going to do with families? Because we're trying to reduce the number. And this was legislative, the legislature supported us on this. We need to reduce the number of people we were housing. We wanted the cap was going to be 1,100. So we opened up a couple of family shelters, congregate family shelters, and we had tremendous success in doing so. And we were able to provide the services they need. We were able to have eyes on them. When they're in a hotel room, we don't have those services. We don't have eyes on them. We don't interact with them. We can't. And but with congregate shelters, we know what their needs are. We can provide for them. We can find them a job. We can find them with child care. We can provide wraparound services if they need those services. They need addiction issues that they might have, that we can help them. But being in a hotel, isolated in a hotel room, isn't the answer. But congregate shelters in different capacities is, and I know Brock is doing some good work there, and I think that's the future.
Well, and if we rewound the tape and went back to COVID, we thought people were going to be dying in the streets.
Yeah.
We didn't know.
We had no idea what was going to happen.
So all those decisions that were made were right decisions based on the time we were in, and frankly, your courage. And I remember the day when you shut down Vermont, we really needed to stop, pause, and figure out what was going on. And now we'll reel that back in.
Yeah,
Thank you for your leadership during that time.
There's going to be some tough decisions that need to be made, but because it's far easier to say we need to throw more money at it, but we have to live within our means.
Since the change in the federal government back on Inauguration Day, there has been changes economically. There's been some concern over the cuts that are being made from the federal government, how that will affect Vermont. One of those is, and this is just one example of that, is that for the library system, federal funding has been cut for services for the blind, homebound, and other high-need populations. That's just one example that has been cut. How is the state responding to or planning for potential future cuts?
Yeah. Well, first of all, a lot of what we hear is rhetoric. We don't, and I said from the very beginning, and I, again, admittedly, I wasn't a big fan of President Trump, but he's elected. He's our president, and we need to work with him. He's got 4 years, and his administration and the Congress to do what we can do together and voice our concerns when it's real, but when it's just rhetoric, we can't live in chaos for 4 years, right? We've got to figure out how to move forward. We have too many things to do, too many issues to solve on our challenges to solve on our own. So I've said to our folks, because we heard a lot within our cabinet, oh, something's going to be, this is going to cut this and cut that. Well, that's maybe what they wanted to do, but it wasn't necessarily happening. So I said, we're going to deal with facts. And when it happens, we'll deal with it. I mean, we'll get prepared for it, but we're not going to just spin out of control, chase our tail when we need to pay attention to the real issues that are facing Vermont. And thus far, it's still a lot of rhetoric. There's fact and fiction, and it hasn't come to fruition each and every time. The libraries have seen a cut, but there's been some good news there. We thought there was going to be some cuts, but then they were able to access some funding. So again, when it all levels out, we'll deal with it. And that's why I begged the legislature not to overspend, not to commit money. You leave some in reserve, so if we do have issues that we need to address, we'll have some funding, we'll have some reserve funding to backfill that because we want to take care of our own. So again, at this point in time, we'll deal with it when it comes, but it hasn't all come yet. It's really, we have to deal with the reality.
And another shout out, thank you for supporting the 802 Opportunity Grant and for supporting inclusion in Vermont, not only from a human rights standpoint, but also from an economic one. Back to federal government and concerns about particularly Medicaid and how that might influence what the state needs to do. Is that also part of your plan to wait and see and react at that point? Are there any steps being taken now to plan for cuts?
Can anybody tell me what's happening today? Really, in Washington today, I don't know exactly what that bill means and whether it's going to pass. And it's still in the Senate. There's going to be amendments in the Senate, and then they're going to have to work together with the House. I don't think we know enough yet. But again, we'll address it when it comes. And Medicaid is an area that I'm concerned about because we're an aging state. You know, that's our problem. It's our demographics. We're aging faster than almost any other state. Maybe Maine and New Hampshire have their issues as well. But I've given you the numbers before, and when you think about it, just think about the numbers. You know, we have, under the age of 18, we have 14,000 in the last 10 years, 14,000 fewer under the age of 18 than we did 10 years ago. 14,000. We have 28,000 fewer age 40 to 55. That's the meat of our workforce. We have 28,000 fewer there. We have 48,000 more over the age of 65 than we did 10 years ago. That tells you, if you just think about those three numbers, that tells you everything you need to know about what our challenges are here in the state. So Medicaid, which because of our economy, we didn't build the housing we needed. We need more people in the state. We need more taxpayers, not more taxes. And so it is what it is, but we'll address it when it comes. And we'll figure it out.
And back to the school piece, total transparency, I did not write these questions. Governor Scott appointed me to the State Board of Education, total transparency. I'm completely impressed with Secretary Saunders. She is jumping in, she's a systems person, she knows education. I think she's moving things in all the right directions. But we do have a working mom in the room here who says she has 3 children, and she's anxious about consolidation and wonders what that timeline might look like, or is it too soon to tell?
Yeah, I mean, this transition is going to take years. 2 to 3 years, we'll start seeing some change, but it won't be immediate. And my thought, and again, we've got a long ways to go before anything's solidified. But my thought has always been, when I grew, and I'll use, again, my hometown of Barrie as an example. When I grew up there, I went to Lincoln School, K through 5. And we had 7 of those elementary schools throughout the city. You probably had something similar here in Rutland. But we had 7 of them, all brick buildings, all built at the same time, about the same size, littered throughout the city. Well, the population started to decline. We were the 3rd largest city in the state at one point. We had over 10,000, 11,000 people. And today it's been reduced by 3,000. So the reduction was happening quick in Barrie. So they decided older buildings didn't make much sense. A lot of repetitive overhead there. And so they decided 25 years ago to build one elementary school and close all the other schools. Tough decision, but they made it, and Barrie City is better off for it today, but it's one school in the city. So my point is this: I think we should be focusing on, if we're going to have kids traveling further, I think they should be upper grades. I think elementary school, we should keep it as close as we can to the population center and to different populations within that area, and not make the kids get busted for long periods of time. But again, we'll see where it all works out, but I wouldn't worry about it this year or even next year. We have to draw those supervisory lines first and then make some decisions on a regional basis.
And you may say, Lyle, I suggested you bring Secretary Saunders down to answer these questions. Here's another education question.
Well, I do think she should come down sometime. She'd be happy to, whether she knows
This
it
is
or
about
not.
taxing. This is about taxation, and why can't we just tax second homes and short-term rentals at a higher rate? But then I have a contradictory question saying, but if you do that, then you're losing out on the tax base that you would not get, because now they're going to pay for it more, and they don't even have kids in school anyway.
Yeah.
So
Well,
which is it?
There's the dilemma, right? I mean, we all depend, Vermont depends on a secondary market. We all do. I see many businesses here that have built a lot of the infrastructure. Killington is highly dependent on another economy, so to speak. So, they're already paying quite a bit. When you think about property taxes, I've heard from many of them over the years, like, why am I paying $50,000 a year for my home in property taxes when I don't have any kids here? I don't impact the services. I come up here, once a month and enjoy Vermont, spend some money, but how am I impacting? Why am I paying so much? So you have that. But again, what a lot of folks are leading to is trying to find ways to create more money, right? To spend more money. That's not our problem. We need to figure out how to become more efficient. And if we can consider the second homes and so forth. We can reduce the taxes on residential homes. We can do all that. But just looking for a quick fix and charging them more just to satisfy or try and solve the problem we have now isn't going to fix it, because we're still going to have an inefficient system and we're still going to have fewer kids, and it just doesn't make any sense. So again, we can have the conversation about taxing non-residential homes more, but now's not the time until we figure the rest of this out.
2 more questions, not on education. Will we need to end our agreement with ICE to protect our agricultural workers and our dairy farmers?
Well, we're not going to, we can't end our agreement with ICE. They're the federal government. So they have an obligation to secure our borders and to protect and make sure that we are all safe, right? So I remember the issue up north. You might have recalled there was I think there was two people coming out of the woods, and it was reported by somebody. It was up in Franklin County. And it was reported by somebody that somebody was sneaking across the border. So Border Patrol came out. This was nice, but Border Patrol came out and to investigate. Well, they found there were two people coming out of the sugar woods there from the border side. So they were just approaching them to talk with them, but because everyone's a little bit on edge, these folks who worked on the farm decided to run instead. Well, Border Patrol had they had to follow them, they had to apprehend them, they had to do their job. And then ICE was called in, and then it became a fairly significant ordeal. And so that wasn't anybody's fault, other than they probably shouldn't have run at that point in time to try and escape. But everyone's living in fear at this point. So we've been working behind the scenes with other governors and other secretaries of agriculture and so forth. We know there's an issue. We've had this issue for decades in Vermont. We have a undocumented worker program in our farms and communities for quite some time. So, and other states have the same issue. And most of the northern border states that have agriculture are facing the same thing. So we've been working on that. I was pleased to read that I think as recently as maybe yesterday, President Trump had made mention of this, that maybe there's another approach. Maybe we can, for those who are here peacefully, just doing their job, have worked here for a decade, have families, maybe we can figure something else out here. And the hospitality sector, I think he added as well. So I'm encouraged that he's talking about it, and we're hearing good things from other, my friends in other states who have the ear of the president. So I think it's making a difference, and I think there's a simple answer here, and we'll just have to work our way through it. But I think there is going to be some resolution on that.
And I lied, there are two questions, both softball questions that are left. The first one being, what help do you need from the residents of Rutland County?
Oh, just keep doing what you're doing. I mean, there's different regions of the state. I like Rutland because it reminds me of Barrie. Blue collar, hardworking community that tries to take care of their own and tries to improve their economy. And there's, we suffer in Barrie in some of the same areas that you suffer in, addiction issues. The economy has taken a wrong turn. We had the granite industry. You had something similar with marble and other mining. So we are similar in that way. So I would just say, just continue to do what you're doing. Build as much housing as you can. Focus on regulatory reform that you can control on the local level to allow for that housing, and get behind your legislators and keep sending us the good ones here. I mean, I have to say, Tim, really, this group of legislators has really helped us in our time of need over the last year. So, and previous to that, but particularly was as many of you, and they're talented and they're measured and they do the right thing. So just keep doing what you're doing.
And one last question. We always worry about the governor, and does he take time for himself? So what do you do for fun anyway?
Mow the lawn.
Ladies and gentlemen, the governor of the state of Vermont, Bill Scott.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
And so we have an ask of the governor, and if you could, I'm going to have you open that in just a second. I know that you can only accept gifts up to a certain monetary value.
Right.
Guaranteed we're below that. So we need you to wear what's in there, because one of the things we're working very hard on is our regional marketing initiative. You talked about getting more people to come. We need to spread that pie of taxation wider and more broadly. So if you could take out what's in that bag right now, and it doesn't bite in any way, but we do have a real Rutland hat that we will expect you to wear all over the state. We do have a real Rutland vest that we expect you to wear all over the state. And when you come back to visit us, we have toques, we have all sorts of things, umbrellas. We want you to be wearing the correct garb. So thank you again for being here.
Do you have a race car with real Rutland on it?
There we go. We're going to make that happen. All right, we're going to make that happen. And before you all go, Governor, if you'd like to just briefly have a seat with Senator Collamore. This is the unabashed advertising for Chamber and Economic Development. Thank you again for being here. We have some events and activities coming up that we hope that you will be participating in, like on Tuesday, July 8th, we have a mixer at Four Seasons Sotheby's International Real Estate on West Street. It's a lot of fun. And then on August 12th, we have another mixer at Rutland Appliance on North Main Street. They guarantee that's going to be a lot of fun as well. In September, we have a mixer at FW Webb. We also have, for the 4th year, the Whoopie Pie Festival coming to downtown Rutland, which last year drew 7,500 people downtown. Buy your tickets online right now. That's my advertisement. And you can do that. Buy your tickets now online. Also in October, we have a mixer at Allen Pools and Spas. We have our annual meeting thanks to Killington Resort. I see Amy Laramie and others from Killington here. We will be at the K1 Base Lodge on October 28th, where you can come and see the different businesses that Moe's will be working with. There will be a pitch competition there, money given away. It'll be a great event. That's October 28th, a Tuesday, 5:30 at Killington K1 Base Lodge. And not to be forgotten, we will have the end-of-year mixer, thanks to Chris and his team. Chris is here someplace. He's going to raise his hand because Heritage Family Credit Union, thank you very much, will be again holding our end-of-season mixer. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming. We appreciate your support. We appreciate your membership. Rutland is on the move right now. There's a lot going on. Stay tuned. Thank you very much.